everybody, thank you so much for joining me. In today's video I wanted to talk about university and textbooks. Are they necessary? Do you need them? So whatever course you're doing at university, I think even probably the arts courses, although I have to admit I've only done sort of psychology and science at university, but you're likely to be given a reading list from your lecturers, and that reading list will consist of some big ass heavy textbooks and just some sort of general other reading as well that they think would be a good idea. If you don't get that sort of thing, I would ask for it personally. I do think it's really useful. Now the textbooks themselves are very expensive. If you are a mature student like myself, you might find it slightly easier maybe to buy these books because you might have access to other money. You know, if you don't have access to other money, or you are a student who has no sort of savings or other cash or anything that you can put into your university studies, then buying these big expensive textbooks can be a real challenge as to whether or not you actually need them. You know, you really can sort of battle. So one thing that I do in this instance is to ask the lecturers. Now, quite often textbooks are available online to access through your university, through the library, or they will be in your university's library. So you don't necessarily have to buy them yourself. You can borrow them from the library, or you can, there should be some sort of facility through your university in order for you to be able to get an e-copy if you want to. Have I ever used textbooks? Me personally, I do tend to buy the textbooks or some of the textbooks that I think are going to be really important. So I have a massive textbook that is Global Approaches to Science, I believe. Now that textbook I have used quite a lot. I've dipped into it quite a lot. I brought it in my foundation year and I have used it, and I'm sort of at the end of my second year now, about to go into my third year, and I have used that textbook sort of sporadically. Now I buy them personally so that I can highlight in them, I can add notes in them, I can leave little tabs in them. It's just so I've got them and I can refer back to them. When I'm making my revision notes and things, I can go back to the textbooks. So personally, I do get the textbooks. But are they actually useful? Textbooks are useful for a broad overview of a topic. They're not going to give you all of the intricate details, but they will give you a big, broad overview of the topic that you're looking after. So, for example, if you've got a lecture on, I don't know, say cells in the body or something like that, a textbook is going to give you really good broad overview on what sort of cells are, how they work, what are they made up of, sort of broad stroke information that can give you some really good pre-information that you need ready to really digest some information at university. For me personally, what I like to do is I read the chapters of a textbook that are related to lectures that are coming up. So I don't tend to use my textbooks during lectures or after the lecture. What I tend to do is I will look at what the lectures are going to cover ahead of time, and I will read the textbooks, the chapters of the textbooks relevant to those lectures in advance. That way when I go into the lecture, I'm already armed with some overview information, so if the lecturer sort of starts to go into a little bit of detail, I can sort of connect the dots as to how that fits in because I did that pre-study. As I mentioned, I use textbooks to get an overview of a topic or overview of an area. After my lecture, that's when I will normally delve into some detail on that particular topic. Now that comes from looking at research articles and current research to do with the area that I am particularly interested in, or to do with the topic that I've recently covered. There could be other aspects or other areas of a textbook that cover that sort of thing, but again, generally it will tend to be sort of broad, sort of sweeping strokes. So what I would likely do is look at getting a book that is specifically tailored to a part that I need to understand. I'll give you an example. So I did very recently, one of my modules was on molecular biology. I'd done genetics the previous year and molecular biology this year. So it was just slightly more detailed. So genetics, big overview of genetics, molecular biology, sort of bringing that in a little bit. And then each one of my modules then, each one of my lectures covered different parts of the module. So what I could then do is I could look at, okay, so I want to understand eDNA, for example. I want to understand environmental DNA and its impact. What are we doing with it? How are we using it? What's the future of it? So I could look at current research journals and understand what the latest current research is, and then I can look at other books that it specifically cover eDNA or types of techniques that are used in the industry at the minute, and it covers eDNA. That way then it gives me even more detail. So I'd use a big broad sweeping book such as my introduction to molecular biology book as like my broad textbook, and then I would delve into that with the molecular biology book, for example, or then any of the sort of little books that I might be able to access through the library which cover specific topics that I might need. What to do if you can't access textbooks? If your university do not offer any ebooks, or you don't like to read ebooks, for me personally, I cannot read a book on a screen. I brought myself a Kindle, which I thought I would love, and I just cannot get on with it at all. I need a physical book in front of me. Maybe you're the same as me, maybe you like ebooks, but if that sort of facility is not available to you, what I would do is I would speak to your university and I would see which books they think are absolutely crucial to your degree. At no point during my time at university has a lecturer said to me, get out such and such a book, go to page 95, there's some information. Sometimes in the lectures, lecturers will mention a particular book and a part of a book that you might find interesting. Now, usually that book is available in the library. So if they're saying to you, have a little look at this, vertebrate biology book, specific book, look at this specific part of this chapter, normally that book is available in your library for free. So obviously you can borrow it from your library, or you can just go into the library and read that part. Quite often it's a section of the book that the lecturers want you to sort of look at. It isn't like the whole book, and so you can normally do that in not very much time really, make some notes on it, and then like I say, you can use your notes and that bit of information that you read to sort of delve a little bit deeper and to go into more recent research, which you'll probably find online. Accessing research online. When I talk about accessing research online, I don't mean going to Google and just Googling questions and finding answers. That isn't what I mean. So at university level, you're sort of expected to use different sources to get your information. Now, you're expected to use primary sources. A primary source is basically the person that wrote the research. So where did the information actually come from? So lots and lots of books will, or research will sort of cite Charles Darwin, for example, in life sciences that I'm studying. Now, you can obviously read on Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, probably not the first edition because that's like thousands of pounds to buy. But lots of people use that. Now, that's the primary source. Now, lots of other people will have read his works and they will cite it in their own works, and that is kind of okay. Now, what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be hitting up Wikipedia, having a little look to see what information they can give you. Wikipedia is great and it's lovely, but it's not really suitable for academic study at university. What you need to be doing is you need to be accessing scientific journals. Now, your university should have access to all of the different scientific journals that you need access to. If there's particular journals that you're sort of frequently not able to get on, you can always contact your university library to see if there's any way that they can get access to those journals for you. Because if you need them, it's likely that other people need them too. But access your university's library and look through the journals that they offer. Normally what I will do is I'll put in a little search term, something that I need to understand or know about. I don't know, so for example, if I needed to understand the coloration of geckos, for example, that is a search term I would look up. I would be looking that up through the university's library, and that will bring up any books that might contain the information and also any current research articles that are related to that as well. And then I can delve through all of that research and I can get the detail that I need. Other reading. outside of your textbooks that you might or might not want to access or use yourself or whatever, and outside of journals that you're going to be spending your entire life reading through, there are other science books. Now, these are maybe related to your industry or area of interest, but are not directly related to your study. Now, it's a great thing to be able to do, to read these books and get some really good information. So, for example, I read recently T-Rex and the Creator of Doom. Brilliant book. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it to anybody, especially if you're doing like a science-based degree. Now, I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not looking to go into paleontology. Dinosaurs are cool. I think dinosaurs are as cool as the next person thinks that they're cool. I have no particular interest in them. But what was interesting about this book was that it spoke about scientific method and how they discovered the crater that from the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. They basically didn't believe people at first. They were so narrow-minded, thinking that they knew where the crater sort of roughly was, that they were then bending what they could see to match what they sort of, because they thought the crater was going to be somewhere different. They were sort of looking at the little holes thinking, this must be it must have broken up or whatever. They were trying to basically sort of bend what they could see to match what they thought, as opposed to sort of looking at it and thinking it's actually not there, and then having to sort of rework out the science behind it all. So I found that really interesting. It's a really interesting book that discusses scientific method, and just because you don't see what you think you're going to see doesn't mean you haven't found nothing. You still found something. It's really interesting. But I personally have read a lot of books that are not directly related to my study and my modules. They are just generally to do with life science. Now, all of that information, it all adds into you as a developing person, and you with a developing interest in your field in general. So if your field is art or art history or psychology or sports science or any of these things, you don't just want to read your textbooks and your journal articles. You want to read things that are written by other people who are in your industry to get a really good feel for science in general or your topic area in general, which will just help to feed into you being a more well-rounded, well-researched member of that academia. Editions of textbooks. Lots of textbooks are revised, and so you don't always need to get the latest revision of the textbook, to be honest. So quite often the latest textbook is probably going to be sort of £100 or so, whereas if you get the edition before that, or even the edition before that, then quite often you can get that for sort of almost half of the price. Now, if you're going to be buying a couple of textbooks, so 2-3 textbooks, you're going to be looking at sort of £150. That's a lot of money to spend on books. So what I would personally be doing is I always look at a couple of editions sort of before that. Often the things that are revised, they'll put a little slip of paper inside the old textbook anyway and sort of tell you what has been revised. Or it will just have sort of a couple of bits basically that aren't in the book, but they generally don't change it so astronomically that it's going to be completely different from the latest edition. Some people can afford the latest editions, in which case great, good for you. Personally, I like to use World of Books, Amazon, eBay. Quite often people sell off their old textbooks because they're so expensive, so you can get them for a really good price. So personally, I go to secondhand book places and I try and find my textbooks there. It doesn't really bother me if it's a couple of editions down. If I was to buy a second edition, maybe, and I don't know, it was on edition 35, I'd probably think there's quite a bit missing from that book. But if you are only using it as an overview for your topic and your lecturers are never going to refer to it anyway, you're still getting that information is still there. So I wouldn't be too precious about the edition of the book that you want to get. Even if your lecturers are referring to a book and they refer to a section, and say, I don't know, say section 7.2 on page 197 or whatever, but you've got a book that is a couple of editions before the lecturer's book, that section is still going to be there. The title is likely to still be the same, but it will just be in a different place in the book. So you just look for that bit that the lecturer was talking about, as opposed to maybe specifically going to that page or that page number. But I would definitely ask your lecturers if they're telling you to get a specific book and they want you to get it. I would be asking, why and if the edition mattered. audiobooks. Not sponsored or affiliated or anything like that, like, because Audible literally have no idea who I am as a person, although they should, the amount I spend on there. But audiobooks, absolutely do not underestimate audiobooks. If you are like me and you can't sort of sit still for too long, you have to sort of get up and move around and stuff, audiobooks are absolutely brilliant. They are a great way of you being able to absorb lots of information, you know, without having to sort of sit and physically read something. Now, I personally use Audible a lot, and I listen to a lot of books on Audible. They generally are not going to have your textbooks, so Audible are a lot more likely to have books that are within your area of interest, within your sort of study area of interest, but not maybe necessarily a specific sort of textbook, you know. So this goes back to what I was saying before, that when you are reading for university, you are sort of expected to read outside of your sort of module field of interest as well. So if you've got a specific topic area that you're covering in a module, you're generally expected to read outside and around that. You'll hear the lecturers sort of talk about it all the time, you know, reading around the subject. And that's where Audible can really help you, because it's highly likely that there's a lot of books on Audible that are connected to your field of study that are not directly related to a module specifically, but it will still give you lots of information. I personally have listened to some absolutely amazing audiobooks to do with ecology and biology. A lot of the ones I've been listening to most recently are to do with soil and soil science, and they are just absolutely exquisite. It's a great way of me being able to listen to books. So when I'm driving, my commute to university is about an hour. So while I'm driving for that hour, I can listen to a book, and then I can listen to a book for an hour home. You know, that's 2 hours a day that would ordinarily be wasted, where technically then I'm actually studying, because I'm listening to a book related to my industry whilst I'm driving. Quite often while you're listening to these books as well, they're sort of around your field of study books. Once you've been doing that quite a lot, you can start to piece together bits from other places. And some audiobooks I have just thought were so amazing that I've then gone out and brought the physical copy as well, just so that I've got it for my, I don't know, my bookcase, where I have everything that just looks pretty. So yeah, Audible, definitely one that I highly recommend. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was only a short video. I just wanted to sort of talk about textbooks. So we're about to go into sort of new years of study. I am in my second year, I'm about to go into my third year. And there might be some of you at the moment who are sort of just transitioning between years or transitioning into university. And, you know, you're sort of thinking like, what books do I need? What am I going to do? How am I going to afford all of these books? So I hope this has helped you a little bit. If you've got any specific questions, please put them in the comments below. I will answer your questions. If there's anything you want to know about books and university, absolutely let me know. Your very best place to go is your library. The people in the library are just amazing. I absolutely love them. They will help you locate the books that you need, or sort of talk to you about the books, or if they don't have them in, where to get them from, all that sort of stuff. They're great places to go with amazing resources. So hit up your library if you're not certain. So thank you so much for watching. Around the screen now there'll be other videos that maybe you might be interested in that I've done. Like I say, let me know in the comments if you need to know anything specifically, but that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you so much. Bye.